Some mods are silly. Some I would say though you really need to try, whether it's a must-have mod or a must-try mod. The Widgets mod is certainly one of them, and the name is simple. It's simply called Widgets. Quick download, easy to install. And when you load up your game, you might notice that, well, there are no widgets, or at least it looks like there aren't any widgets. If you go into the mod config options, there is a widgets config. It does say visibility on. So it begs the question, well, where are the widgets? There they are, right there. And yeah, they're not going to do you much good if they're all stacked on top of one another. So we're going to have to sort that out because they're not, as I say, going to be very helpful if they're just stacked in the same place on the screen. So how do you move those around? Well, there is a widget positions option. And unfortunately, although it looked like a nice little tool, just doing this doesn't seem to do anything. It even has a little black square there on the display to kind of demonstrate where the XY position for each one is. But sadly, this alone really doesn't do anything. So if that doesn't move the widgets around and the visibility is on, what do you do with them? You can't just click on it and move them around. Well, there is a solution, and it's very straightforward once you know what to do. All you have to do is go to settings and then controls, not mod controls, but controls. If you scroll down, you'll see the mod controls. You just have to bind a button to the positioning mode. This is what sorted it out for me. I just used the asterisk on my number pad. And once you hit that, once it's mapped to your keyboard, this little XY maneuvering box appears. And yeah, you can click it and it doesn't really seem to do much at all. Thankfully, if you move it out the way, what you'll find is that you can basically ignore it and just use your mouse to move the different things around. And that way you can set them up however you want. There's the actual real life clock I'm moving around. Yeah, I'm up pretty late tonight doing this. And here's the summons. Here's the mana pool, etc. And so we'll get into this a little bit later, what each one of these is saying. But as you can see, it's pretty easy to set this up. I put mine mostly along the top so that they wouldn't get in the way of my inventory or any of the other user interface elements. And that last one there, I believe, is the ammunition counter. If you have a ranged weapon, it'll appear. A lot of these default to being off, and so they won't get in the way. The health meter obviously remains there for constant viewing. And once you start flying around with wings, this is probably my favorite widget, is the wings widget. And that's the one I would say is my favorite because it's frankly the most useful. You get a kind of an intuition for how much flight time you have left on some wings, but it is nice to have an actual visual indicator. So that's definitely one of my favorite ones. I do think that the summon one is helpful too. If you're maybe just a casual summoner, even you'll have an idea of when your buffs run out so that you're just down to the one minion slot. Other things like the health and the mana pool, you can take it or leave it really. But if we go back to the widgets config, you can see some of these things. We have the ammunition display, as I said, the breath and lava immunity bar. You've got a buff display. You've got my favorite one, the flight time bar. And of course, it should not just be wings. Certain mounts also, I believe, have limited flying time, so that should display. We've got a healing display, a health bar. And so there's a lot of different stuff you can display here. We have the invincibility time bar. If you're temporarily invincible, we've got the mana display. I know I said mana earlier. I'm kind of fickle about that. Minion display, again, one of the more useful ones in my estimation. And then a few other things. And that sentry one was the one just below my inventory on the left side of the screen. So a few different widgets you can configure. And yeah, you don't necessarily need to use all of these. It's really up to you. It's your own personal preference, obviously. But that's a fair summary of what you get from the Widgets mod. Nothing too fancy, but sometimes the simple things in life are the most important, like the wheel. So there you go. Hope this was helpful. Thanks for watching.